Good.
Is this? Oh yeah, now it's working. Okay. I'm loud enough, regardless. First off, I love being back in Guelph. I used to actually work out of Guelph in this area. I did direct marketing out here, so I'd sell makeup to the university students. This is a true story. And I'd also sell gas or sell a can of wax at a gas station. So if you ever bought wax at a gas station, that was what I used to do here. So fun times, right? The PowerPoint good, my man? Yes, thank you for the introduction, Wayne. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and who I am. There you go. Art of challenging yourself. There you go. So for myself, this is a little bit about me right here. So who is Brandon Rank? I hold a number of titles. I do a lot of different things. I'm a freelancer. So I'm a health and wellness educator and practitioner. So I consult companies, organizations, individuals alike. I'm a personal trainer. I do group training. I talk to schools. I'm all over the board that way. I also write, as you heard. So I write a blog called The 365 Days of Fulfillment. So every day I go on, I write one thing you can do to live a more stimulating life. It can be as simple as to take your dog for a walk, to do a 5K, to run with a tree. It doesn't really matter. Just something you can do to add a little bit more stimulation to your life. And then I also host a podcast called the Fear of Being Average podcast, which is a good opportunity for me to listen to other leaders in their industries, whether they're ultramarathoners, world champions, MMA fighters, industry leaders, health practitioners, CEOs of different companies, global expeditionists, and it's a great opportunity for me to learn from their stories and hear about their perspective on being a leader in their own life. And last but not least, I am a strength and endurance adventure athlete. So basically a made-up fancy title that I put on myself. So I take on strength and endurance events with two different ways to look at how I do that. One is I take on endurance races, whether it's swimming, biking, running, and I just keep a strong build to me. I still lift really heavy weight. I keep more muscle mass than the average endurance athlete, obviously. Or I'll take an endurance event, whether it's like a swim, bike, or run, and I'll add a strength component to it. So I'll take that event and I'll put it on its head. So this is a little bit of my history. It all started back in 2017 of December. I was working at Good Life at the time. I was a fitness advisor, and I was one of the top fitness advisors in the region. I was doing really well there, and I eventually went on to become the #1 fitness advisor in the company. So over 400 locations, I was a top fitness advisor. I was really enjoying my time there. But it came to the point where I really wanted to kind of pursue something different. And I had a whiteboard at home. I wrote down about 7 different things of what my most ideal life would look like. And that consisted of adventure and travel. I wanted to be in the health and wellness sector still. I wanted to speak and I wanted to write on top of that. And I wanted to do something impactful and do something unique and different. And so that allowed me to create this thing called the 365-day challenge. So for me, I wanted to become an expert in the fields of grit, consistency, and fulfillment. My whole hypothesis was if we challenge ourselves mentally and physically in some regard every day, we're gonna live a more fulfilling life. So I was like, what would be a crazy thing I could do that I could earn a little bit of credibility, that I could basically earn my master's degree in this subject matter? So that 365-day challenge basically consisted of me doing a year-long challenge with no days off. I had 12 different challenges that I would do every day of that given month. So I had things like, I started off with a 5-kilometer run every day at 5:30 in the morning outside in December. I chose that month very purposefully because I knew it was gonna be cold, I knew it was gonna be shitty, I knew the weather conditions would be all over the place, but I'd wake up and take care of that 5-kilometer run every day. I went on to do a marathon on 3 weeks of training. On that same month, 3 weeks later, I did my first ever 50-mile ultramarathon on 6 weeks of training. I competed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I did 30 days of BJJ, and then I went on to compete in a tournament where I won bronze. I cycled the Great Lakes of Ontario, so that was one of my months where I cycled the entire month, but 14 days going from Colborne, Ontario, all the way to Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. It took me 14 days to complete and over 1,400 kilometers of that solo expedition. I completed a half Ironman. I did a Good Life powerlifting meet, so this one is out to my boy Luke out there. I lifted some weights. That consisted of the bench press, the deadlift, and the squat. And I did a month of powerlifting to lead up to that one, so not a lot of time to prep for it. But it was a regional competition and a mock meet, and I won that one. I came in first place with 1,152 pound total at 70 pounds, or 170 pound division, sorry. Then I did 3 ultra marathons that year, 2 of being the Canadian Death Race, which is a 125 kilometer ultra marathon in the mountains of Grand Prairie, Alberta. It's a 24-hour continuous run, so there's no really time off. You go to these different aid stations, you fuel up, but you continuously run through the night. and you just keep moving your body the entire time, and you have a 24-hour cutoff. I did it in 22 hours and 40 minutes, so I just made it. And then I took on the Moab 240, which is an insane run. It's one of the longest ultra marathons in the world. And I was doing this on 6 months of training with my build, so it didn't make a whole lot of sense, but the idea was to challenge myself. That's a 240-mile run. It'd be a 110-hour cutoff, so it would be 4 days of continuous running. Yes, there were sleep stations where you could sleep for 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever you needed, but the goal was to get your 240 miles done in 4 days. I'll get into more about that in a little bit. And then this past year, I ran my first 100-mile run in Halliburton this year. It took me 29 hours and 40 minutes to complete. So I had 20 minutes. I just made the cutoff time, and that was a continuous run up in Halliburton. And then this past year, I set a Canadian record. I became Canada's strongest triathlete. And basically what that consisted of, does anyone know what Olympic distance triathlon is? Yes? Okay, so we got a 10-kilometer run. We have a 40-kilometer bike ride, and we have a 1.6-kilometer swim. And for me, I wanted to raise money for an environmental charity, and I wanted to bring more awareness to my message and to my mission. So I wanted to do something crazy enough that people couldn't ignore it. So I was sick of people not seeing what I was doing, so I said, all right, we're going to do something that people can't ignore. So I did Canada's first ever triathlon. So that's a tree on my back during the Olympic distance triathlon. So yeah, it's 7 feet, it's 80 pounds, and I would just wear it the entire Olympic distance triathlon, right? I would ride with it, and I had to have really good core engagement so I didn't fall over. The run sucked a bit, obviously, with the tree bouncing around, but we got it done. And the swim, I had a rope around my waist, and the tree dragged behind me, so just a little bit more drag, so a little bit more shoulder strength involved with that one. But we did it. It took me 4.5 hours to do, and I was the first Canadian and the second person in the world to ever do this, so there you have it there. And in 2020, before we get into the presentation, this is a few of the things I want to do. The Rim to Rim to Rim, it's a Grand Canyon solo ultra marathon. It's going from South Rim to North Rim, back to South Rim. It's 48 miles, probably take me somewhere between 15 and 20 hours to complete. I'll do 3 to 5 other ultra marathons, and I plan to set another Canadian first this year called 13 Provinces in 13 Days. And yes, you read that right, 13 provinces in 13 days. So I'm going to go province to province to province for 2 weeks straight. And I'm going to do 13 incredible feats of strength and endurance. I try to set a few Canadian records in the process. I plan to do Canada's strongest swim. I'm not going to give all the details out because I want it to be one of those things that people are watching me go through and they're excited to see what the next day is. But I'll be doing Canada's strongest rope climb, Canada's strongest swim, 4 different types of marathons. So if you can think about all the different endurance sports out there, I'm going to be doing 4 different types of marathons within those 13 days. My final day, I'm going to be in Ontario, in the nation's capital of Ottawa, and I'm going to do a 24-hour test of physical fitness, which is going to be accumulation of the previous 12 days in sports and events. I'm going to put that all into one 24-hour workout that I'm going to do. Okay? That's my plan for 2020. So the question is, but why, Brent? Why do this stuff that you do? And it really goes back to leading by example. And there's 2 ways that I look at leadership. For one, to be a really influential leader, it's about obviously leading by example. And to lead by example is about having excitement in your life, having purpose in your life, and being excited and having the energy to lead effectively, right? We want to make logic-based decisions. We want to have excitement in our life, so when we come into work, the people around us are excited to be around us, and we have that excitement to obviously motivate and inspire those around us. And then there's the idea of theorists and practitioners, right? So theorists are the people that obviously read about a subject. They have a lot of expertise in it, right? We see people get their master's degree, and they know a lot about, say, grit and discomfort. And they write books on the subject. And they really know the ins and outs of that subject matter, which is very valuable in its own sense. For me, I wanted to be a practitioner. I wanted to go and put myself in the fire. So if I want to be someone who obviously advocates the idea that I think challenging ourselves is a healthy thing, I think more discomfort is a good thing, especially in today's society, that we should be going towards discomfort much more often, much more frequently. Well, I wanted to be the first person that got into the fire with other people. Because as a leader, this makes me more empathetic, right? I'm able now to understand when someone has stresses at home and they have issues going on in their life, or they have internal suffering, which a lot of people go through, right? We have depression, we have anxiety, we have loneliness, we have meaningless. This happens throughout our lives. So I want to be empathetic towards that, and I want to be strong enough for those people. So by leading by example, that gives me the leverage to go and have conversations that need to be had, but from a strong standpoint, right? Because again, if I'm in those conditions and I have stress in my life and that's taking over my ability to lead effectively, that not only affects me now, it affects my team, my community, my family, and I don't want that to go over in that area. So for me, we want to take chances, we have to be willing to fail. I'm going to get into this picture soon enough, okay? So the idea when we're obviously trying to lead by example, we're taking on challenges, we have to realize that there's going to be a strong opportunity that we're going to fail. And I say opportunity because I look at failure as an opportunity to learn. And that doesn't mean I just go out and try to fail things. I don't take on challenges that I know I'm going to fail. We want to have some reasonable understanding that I can accomplish this with some effort. The person I am right now can't complete this, but if I dedicate enough discipline and consistency and patience and accountability and self-awareness, that eventually I will be able to get there. Because you don't want to set yourself up for failure. You know, but basically with my Moab 240, I was relatively setting myself up for a failure, right? But that's okay because I learned a lot about it, and I learned what not to do, and I learned how to approach such events a little bit more intelligently going forward. But for failure, I think a lot of people hold themselves back as leaders and individuals alike because we're scared, right? A lot of people we have fear of judgment, we have fear of consequence, and we have fear of the failure in itself. What is that failure going to say about me? And that happens a lot, right? We don't take on things that we know would actually better ourselves, better our team, better our community, because we don't know or we're scared of how someone else is going to judge us. Right? So when we have that put on us and we're worried about the external, that obviously affects the internal. It doesn't allow us to lead effectively. But for me, going back to my 365-day challenge, I was telling Dwayne earlier, when I first started all these challenges, I wasn't an endurance athlete at all. I wrestled at the University of Toronto, very explosive, powerful sport, and I played safety at the University of Toronto. So again, 7 seconds of explosiveness. Wrestling was like a 6-minute matchup. So again, I wasn't doing long distance endurance at all. When I did this 365-day challenge, I took on sports that were favorable to someone who's maybe 150 pounds, doesn't have a whole lot of muscle mass, and has been doing it for a very long time for the distances that I covered. So for me, I was taking on challenges that were obviously going to be extremely difficult and challenging, and I had to expect failure early on. I wasn't expecting to not be able to accomplish them, but I had to expect that early on, I was going to look foolish. And this goes back to the fool is the precursor to the savior. And basically what that means is you have to be willing to look foolish. You have to be willing to do something badly, do something poorly, before you ever become the master in that thing. If we're scared to take on opportunity as leaders, and we're scared of what the consequence might be, or if we're going to look like a failure, we're going to stay the exact person we are today. I understand we're asking ourselves to do something that we're not very comfortable with, we're not very certain with. But again, what's the alternative? We either don't do it and we stay the person we are today, and to say that I'm okay with who I am today, to me, I think that's narcissistic, ignorant, and very lazy thinking. To say I am perfect the way I am. Brandon has no improvement that needs to be done as a leader. To me, again, that goes back to very lazy thinking. And I don't think that has a lot of self-awareness behind it. So when I did my 365-day challenge, when I first did my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu month, right, I got tapped out 10 to 15 times easy my first night on the mats. Is what it is. And I have a great point of reference. I went with another friend of mine to that same class. Now, I had 30 days of jiu-jitsu to do that month. So the next day I showed up on the mats and I did jiu-jitsu. My friend Connor at the time, he got hurt, his neck was tight, so he comes back 3 days later. Okay, at that point I have 4 days of jiu-jitsu under me. He has 2, and the math just keeps going, right? I have 8, he has 3. I have 12, he has 4. I have 16, Connor stops coming. But this is what really happened. Every day for him was Groundhog Day again. He got tapped out 10, 15 times every practice. Felt like shit. For me, I kept developing. A month and a half later, I enter a tournament. I have 7 matchups. I have 2 points scored to me the entire time, which is a delay. So I didn't get any points scored against me, and I win bronze. This is what consistency does. I was willing to fail that day, and those first 2, 3, maybe even 7 days of getting tapped out daily. And I still get tapped out a shit ton today. Let's not get it mistaken. Still get tapped out. But again, I'm able to handle that adversity with greater poise. And then when I first started running, my first day, I remember it very well. It was Easter Sunday. I had a month of running to do. I had a marathon to do on 6 weeks' notice. I had an ultra marathon to do on 9 weeks' notice. I had to get going. I had 30 I had 40 days of running to take care of. First day out, I get plantar fasciitis. If anyone's had plantar fasciitis, it's a shitty-ass injury. So there I was. I couldn't run for 3 weeks. I failed that day. I looked pretty damn foolish. I told everyone I'm going to be running for the next 3 weeks. I had to go on a bike, stationary biking train. I had to cross-train. When I did my cycle along the Great Lakes, Ontario, this is where this picture comes in. There I was. I told everybody I'm going to be gone for 14 days. See you guys later. I'm going from Colborne to Sault Ste. Marie. You're not going to see me for 14 days. 3 days in, I'm making pretty good time. I'm doing about 160 kilometer days. I'm like, all right, man, maybe we're going to get this done a little bit in shorter time. One day I get lost in the back roads, so it tells me to go over a bridge that's no longer there, so I'm like, all right, I can't go over a bridge that's not there. This gentleman, a very kind gentleman, says, hey, I'll get you out of the back roads, just follow me. So I'm following him. I guess my head kind of gets turned at one point, I look down at my watch, and there's like a little hill, right? I flip over that, hit that hill, flip over my bike, smash my face, fracture my nose, split my lip. That is the result of that injury right there. So I went back home. I was in Oshawa at the time, so I got stitched up. My brother picked me up. I got stitched up, got fixed up. The next day, I still had 30 days of biking to do. Let's remember that. It was a 365-day challenge. So I was in the gym looking like this. I'm on a stationary bike for the next 7 days. And then I was like, all right, I got to get this shit done. So I went back out and I did 10 more days of the Great Lakes, Ontario, 1,000 kilometers, and I finished. I didn't look this bad while doing it, but we got her done. But that's the idea. And then I even go into the Moab 240, right? Like, I failed that. I did not complete 240 miles. I had about 40 miles in. I was about 15 hours into my run. I was making pretty good pace. I heard a pop in my calf. I thought it was a cramp. I thought it was pretty hot that day. Probably just a little cramp in my calf. And obviously I keep going. I get to about midnight at this point. I'm hurt as hell. I'm 55 miles into a 240-mile journey, and I'm already hurt. I'm like, all right, this ain't good. But there was a sleep station at mile 75. So I said, all right, I got 20 more miles to go with this injury. It sucks right now, but maybe I can get some sleep. Maybe I can get my foot elevated, get some ice around it, maybe get the cramp taken out. Maybe we'll get back at it, right? So I fight through 20 miles, roughly about 14 hours-ish, maybe like 10 hours of real pain. And I'm telling you, you would see me at the side of the trail on the ground every mile. I take a lacrosse ball, put it behind my calf, drill my leg into it, hold it for a minute, get back up and do another mile for about 10 hours, okay? That sucked. So I got to the sleep station at mile 75. I was there for a little bit. I slept for about 90 minutes, and I was like, all right, I gotta get back on doing this thing. I woke up, my leg was in worse condition, could barely walk. At that point, I was doing a 30-minute mile. If you've ever walked a mile, 30-minute mile is really slow, real slow. I had to average a 2.2 mile pace to finish, and I was going on flat ground. We're not talking about mountain here, we're talking about flat road. I was doing a 30-minute mile, super slow. I pulled myself in at mile 80. So I failed, right? I failed the Moab 240. However, with all these experiences, I've come back stronger from them. I've learned from them, I've handled adversity, and I've used it as an opportunity to actually see what I didn't do properly and how I can become stronger through that process. And this leads into discomfort, because this is a major subject for a lot of what I talk about and a lot of what I actually truly believe in. Like, I think the dichotomy right now is that comfort is good, discomfort is bad, right? I think a lot of people can kind of agree with that at sometimes. Like, hey man, it's cool to be, like right now, you guys are comfortable. Probably feels pretty good. Just have a great meal, you're relaxed, you're warm, you're safe, you're protected. That's good, right? But we don't want to always be getting chased by the saber-toothed tiger fighting for our lives. However, if we go to comfort too often, we never get the opportunity to actually grow into something bigger, better, achieve something more, develop true confidence, right? All those things really matter. So for me, it's about reframing how we see discomfort, right? We need to see discomfort as an opportunity to do something really cool and become a stronger version of ourselves. Because this is what we're trying to do, ultimately, whether it's being a leader, being a spouse, you guys are all in positions of leadership, whether it's being a friend, family member, we want to be able to handle discomfort gracefully. Because outside the business world, let's just talk about the real life situation here, right? If you have a death in the family, or you have a sickness going on, or you have real life stuff that actually happens to you, you need to be able to handle that adversity with grace and poise. Because if not, those stresses not only lead to you having a lower performance level, which again will kind of affect your team, will affect the other 20 to 30 people in your life that actually really need you. So again, by handling discomfort in different ways, whether it's challenging yourself through racing, whether it's just showing up every single day and doing what you know you have to do, you give yourself the ability to be a stronger version of yourself. And again, that's critical, right? Because even in an organization standpoint, let's do the math behind that. If you take someone who really adopts the idea of being uncomfortable, every single day they handle some sort of adversity, they have grit, they have the ability to persevere, they've dedicated discipline and consistency and patience. You take that person, you enter him into the room. Then you have another person who's very comfortable, right? They don't handle a lot of adversity. They get broken down when they're thrown a hurdle or a task or a challenge. Who's going to win that fucking battle, guys? We know the answer to this. There is no...
Sorry, I have to interrupt. Can you use that?
Yes. Yes.
I will also say we're running out of time a little bit, so if you can...
We got you.
Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, so who's going to win that battle, guys? Like, we know what's going to happen there. It's pretty clear that the person that can't handle adversity very well, that doesn't have the poise or the grace to handle some form of discomfort, they're going to have a very difficult time. So again, we need to learn to not only, not hide away from discomfort, but actually embrace it. Use it as an opportunity to become stronger and more able to do the things you need to do. And that's the idea of playing the infinite game. And we see this a lot, right? We see, the finite game, and I look at this, the finite game is playing a game of checkers, and the infinite game playing a game of chess, right? When you play the finite game, you think a few steps ahead, right? Or not even a few steps ahead. You just kind of want to make moves. You want to hop over 4 people on the checkers board, and you want to get kinged. It's all very fast moving, right? We don't adapt very well. We just kind of move, and we want that immediate sense of gratification, right? We want something right now. Where you play the infinite games like playing chess, right? We have to actually think about our moves. We have to understand that we're going for long-term fulfillment and success. Right? So taking your time, having a patience is actually going to do you a lot of good. So we have to be willing to adapt. We see it in organizations a lot, right? With certain leaders at times, where people want to make the win today, right? They're playing checkers. They need to be the best right now. They need to beat their competition, regardless of how that affects the culture and the community of their team. Now, if we're playing chess, hypothetically, we look at the big picture. We're looking at all our moves. That's like, how is this going to affect? What's the ripple effect to this? Right? Yes, we want to collect wins. We don't want to just lose all our pawns. We want to win the game ultimately, and we want to be our best self, but not at the expense of our team and our family and friends. So when we play that infinite game, we think long term. We think big picture. We think about keeping a very strong team, a strong corporation, a strong community, but not at the expense of the immediate sense of gratification now that we need it. So that's just applying patience. It's applying true self-awareness and accountability to the long-term picture. Okay? And then the last one for you guys, I always talk about to be our best self and the best leader possible, whether, again, it's outside of life or in the office, in the workforce, is leading your own life. It's being a little bit selfish, right? It's understanding that we need to lead all 6 pillars of our life. And those pillars are the physical, right? So the health aspects of us, the mental, the emotional, the financial, the professional, and the personal. If we want to be the most effective leaders possible, we have to be willing to nurture all those values. Because it's very easy to get in the headspace of like, well, I need to be the best leader possible, so I need to work the most amount of hours, and that's all I need to be focused on. But again, that takes away from things that you really value most, right? So you need to obviously have that balance in your life. You can't be willing to sacrifice one of your values for the other. And I get there's going to be hierarchies, right? Sometimes work is going to need a lot of your attention. It's going to be a 10 to 12 hour day. It is what it is. Maybe it's an all-nighter at times. But that doesn't mean that we skip workouts for the next week, right? Maybe it's not an hour workout that day. Maybe it's a 5-kilometer run. Maybe it's a couple of push-ups. Maybe it's a quick hit session. Like, we got to do something, right? We need to nurture those values. And that's our personal life too. We need to have that balance, because the idea for you to be an effective leader, again, throughout our lives, and that's what I really try to preach on, is that we want to have that balance throughout our life, not just through one source. Because again, that is short-lived. We see it through celebrities, right? Anthony Bourdain is probably the perfect example. This guy is traveling the world, he's eating the best food with the most interesting people. He has money, he has status, he has fame, apparently he has a loving family. What happens? Commit suicide. So again, that's real stuff that you need to think about, right? You being overwhelmed and exhausted and beat up, and your team being the same way, right? we're pushing them on all ends, where regardless of what happens, you need to get this done. I get that. There's going to be a time for that, for sure. But again, to actually preach, hey guys, take care of yourself first and foremost. Because we want to build people that are excited and stimulated to come into work and to be around, that are excited to be around you and to have a true balance in their life. Okay, guys? All right, thank you so much.